Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and I am so excited to be celebrating 10 years of meaningful conversations with you. As we step into our new primetime hour, it's such an honor to share this exciting new chapter with you. So whether you're starting your day out, headed to work, or listening from wherever you are, this hour is designed to bring you thoughtful dialogue, fresh insight, and inspiring stories so you can make every moment count. So thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive in. We're here today with special guest, Neale Donald Walsch, who's here to share with us his new book, Letters to a Young Seeker, Departing Thoughts from an Elder. What wisdom could transform your life if you discovered it early on? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Neale Donald Walsch is the author of over 40 books on contemporary spirituality. He's best known as a New York Times bestselling author of the internationally acclaimed Conversations with God series, translated into 37 languages. So welcome to the show, Neale Donald Walsch.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here with you. How can I be of service?
Oh my goodness. Well, all of the work that you do is of service, but I'd like to ask, what inspired you to write Letters to a Young Seeker?
My wife, she's a poet, a published poet, and she had a dream a few months back about the German poet Rainier Marie Wilke, and he was a German poet years ago, and he wrote a young poet had written him a letter saying, "How can I be a poet like you?" And so they exchanged letters back and forth for a year or two. And the younger poet actually published after Rilke passed on. The younger poet published his letters in a book called Letters to a Young Poet. And my wife was sharing that story with me one morning because she had a dream about it. And she said, "You know what, sweetheart? You ought to write a book, Letters to a Young Seeker." I said, "That's an interesting idea." And it could contain, she said, everything you wish you knew when you were 25 or even 35 that you didn't learn until you were later in your life. And I said, great idea. So because of her suggestion, I sat down and produced the book. It came through very quickly. I think I wrote the whole thing from start to finish in about 3.5 or 4 weeks. And without working on it every hour of the day, because I had other things that I was doing. But in about 3.5 or 4 weeks, the book was done. We sent it off to a publisher, and by golly, it's out there in the world.
That's so remarkable. What a journey. Was this book in some way channeled, or was it something based on all of your past experience, like a reflection of your experiences?
Yes, I think it was. What I did was I looked through the 3,000 pages of the Conversations with God dialogue, which is published years ago. And I looked through those 9 books that contain those 3,000 pages to pick out what I thought were the single most life-impacting moments, the single most, or the 20 or 21 most meaningful messages in the 3,000 pages of the Conversation with God dialogue. And I put those 21 messages in a series of very short letters to a young seeker.
What conversations were you hoping to have with the younger generation through these letters?
I'm not sure. I'm looking for conversations with the younger generation. I'm hoping to just simply share with them what I have come to understand. And really, as I said a minute ago, what I truly wish that I knew when I was 25 or 35, or frankly, even 45. Why did I have to wait until my mid-50s to even pick up some of the understandings that have fueled my experience in life from that day forward? So I thought, I just sat down and I said, what would I say to a young person in their 20s, 30s, or early 40s that could help them get through life with a lot less challenge, a lot less strain, a lot less stress, and frankly, with hurting a lot other people less as well. Because to be direct and very frank with you, Marianne, I hurt a lot of people in my life. I did some things that I wish I hadn't done. I didn't steal anybody's money or take anybody's wife away from them, but I did do some things like, I exhibited some behaviors which were hurtful to other people. And if I knew then what I know now, I would never have even thought, much less have done some of those things.
I think we all, as we get older, reflect on the past and when we've hurt other people intentionally or non intentionally. And I think that ends up weighing a little heavy on our hearts.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. And so I have come to the conclusion that a nice thing for us to do as we get a little older is to pass on to those who are following us on the path of life. Pass on what we've come to understand. I'm not even going to say what we've come to learn because life is not a learning. In my experience, we're not here to learn anything. Life is not a school, but we are given the opportunity to remember, to come to clarity about what we already know deep inside of us. That's why I have called the 21 messages in the book Letters to a Young Seeker. I've not called them, 21 rememberings or 21 teachings. I've called them inner awarenesses, things that we are already aware of. And that's what people have been saying. They read the book and they go, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I already knew that, but boy, it's great to be reminded of what I already know.
I really like how you start out the book. My heart is with you. It's not easy, this trip that each of us are on. And I think it really resonates with the reader just how difficult it is to be here sometimes.
It is. It can be challenging. However, it doesn't have to be. And that's one of the points, by the way, that my life has brought home to me. It doesn't have to be so challenging, so stressful, so filled with strain and pressure and so forth and difficulty. It doesn't have to be. Even when circumstances are not what we had hoped they would be, even when our goals are not met and a lot of things don't turn out the way we wish would turn out, life does not have to be a negative experience. We can find ways to deal with life such that it's a joy, truly, from beginning to end. So that's what I hope that people who read the book, Letters to a Young Seeker, will conclude. There's more going on here than meets the eye.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because for a lot of people, they may hear that and go, well, what's going on here? I still don't quite understand. And maybe there's something here that will really resonate with my soul that will help me.
Precisely. And that's exactly what the book is about and what the book shares. There is more going on here than meets the eye. We're on a spiritual journey, not a physical journey. The spiritual journey does produce physical experiences, of course, physical events, physical circumstances, surely. But the point of our time here is not to take a physical journey, but to take a spiritual journey, to have a spiritual experience, which produces physical outcomes in our life. So I've come to the conclusion that, I see. I'm not just a body. I'm not just a mind. In fact, my body and my mind are not even who I really am. They're simply, in a sense, pieces of equipment, tools that are being used by who I really am. And who I really am is a soul, a spiritual entity, come here to demonstrate to experience, to fulfill my true identity as an individuation of divinity. So that's my take on the whole matter. And yes, I agree with you that life can be challenging, but it doesn't have to be so challenging that it's no longer enjoyable. I love a challenge. I want life to be challenging to me. You know, I used to play a lot of tennis. I don't play tennis anymore. I'm an older guy, but when I was in my 30s and 40s, I played a lot of tennis. But you know what? I didn't want to play a bunch of games, spend a whole Saturday afternoon playing tennis with somebody that I knew that I could always defeat. I wanted to play tennis with somebody who I thought was better than I was. I wanted to go out on the court and be challenged. And that was the fun of it for me, to meet the challenge and once in a while even beat the guy who was better than I was. So life for me is not about having no challenges. It's about, in fact, meeting the challenge in a way that allows me to experience the fullness of who I really am.
Is that what our soul is really craving? Is these life challenges so that we can overcome them and get, in some ways, to like a new level of understanding of ourselves?
In a sense, I don't think I'd use the word craving, but I think that's or I should say, what our soul is using. I'm not sure it's what our soul is craving, but it is how our soul is using the challenges, the difficulties, the circumstances, the events that occur in an average person's life. Yep. The soul uses every event, every encounter, the pleasant ones and the not so pleasant ones, for the exact same reason, to move us forward in the process that we would call our evolution by demonstrating our true identity.
In your book, it mentions light babies. Can you share on that for us?
I don't talk about light babies. My wife wrote a poem called Light Babies, and that's the only place where the phrase occurs. She says it's just a lyrical poem that she says, we are light babies. And made up of light, if you please, in her metaphor. And so she just wants us to know through her poetry that our true identity is that we're not like birds in the sky or fish in the sea, simply and only physical entities, that we are really light babies.
Thank you. I think that's so beautiful to look at life that way, and especially who we really are. For a lot of people, coming to the realization that we're not the mind body, that we're really a soul on this journey. Is that something that's new to a lot of young people as well?
I can't answer the question because I don't talk to a lot of young people these days. But if it is new, I'm hoping that they will find some value in the book Letters to a Young Seeker. So I've put the book out there in case that it is true that it might be new to some young people, that we're not just a body and a mind. In fact, to repeat myself, the body and the mind is not even who we are. It's just a piece of equipment. Who we are is a spiritual entity. And that might very well be a relatively new thought to younger people. This kind of information is not being shared uh, the way it used to be, uh, from my observation, in the lives of many younger people. So yes, that's one of the reasons that I wanted to put the book out there. I want younger people to know truly there's more going on here than meets the eye.
I really like that phrase. So, how has your understanding of spirituality really evolved over the course of your life?
Golly, what a huge question. It's evolved from something I didn't believe in at all. I heard about it, of course. I was told about it, but I didn't accept it as part of my life. And it's evolved into something that is the central core issue. The central core element of my life is my spirituality. So this huge change in how it's evolved and what it's become for me. I realize now that I'm here for a spiritual reason. I'm not here for physical reasons. I'm not here to, get the girl, get the car, get the job, get the better car, get the better job. I'm not here to get the office in the corner with my name on the door, get the building on the corner with my name on the building. I'm not here to achieve or to accomplish any particular physical outcomes in my life. I'm here, in my understanding, this is my awareness, I'm here to achieve spiritual outcomes. But you know what's interesting in my life when I achieve or even work toward achieving spiritual outcomes, the physical elements and physical events of my life that I most desire fall in on me automatically. They just come my way. Because when I walk a path that is spiritual, the physical path becomes easier to navigate and takes me more often than not exactly where I want to go. Or, as someone 2,000 years ago said much more eloquently, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added unto you.
Oh, wow. That really makes a profound statement and how life can unfold for us when we're looking at life from this lens of a soul as opposed to as a human doing.
That's been my experience for sure. Because when I come from that place of my soul's agenda, I turn into the kind of person who attracts, who becomes a magnet for all other good things in life. So I discovered that what goes around comes around.
That's a good old saying. Yeah. In your book, you talk about the law of opposites. Can you share that with us and what that means?
Yes, you know what? We're taught in school about a lot of laws. The laws of gravity, of course, the laws of, dynamics. There are many laws in the universe, laws of life, but no school, no course that I'm aware of teaches us in college or in high school the law of opposites. But what I've learned in my conversations with God is that the moment that we desire or come to an awareness that we would love to experience a particular outcome in life, its exact opposite will come into our awareness. And there's a reason for that. Because in the absence of its exact opposite, the fullness of what we wish to experience would not be possible. And I said to God, can you explain that to me? I'm not quite sure. I hear the words you're saying, but I'm not quite sure I grasp what it is you're trying to say to me. God said to me, okay, Neale, look, you're 6 feet tall, correct? Yep, I'm 6 feet tall. Do you enjoy being 6 feet tall? I said, yes, I do. I enjoy being a 6 foot tall person. God said, but what if every blade of grass, every tree, every plant, every building, every other person in the universe, what if everything in existence was precisely 6 feet tall? Then there would be nothing that is not what you are. And in the absence of what you are not, what you are cannot be experienced. You could know that you're 6 feet tall. You could walk around saying, I'm 6 feet tall. But if somebody asked you, what's it like? What's it like to be 6 feet tall? You'd have to say, I haven't the foggiest idea, because everything else is exactly 6 feet tall. Then you would pray, you would do anything for something or someone to come along who is 5'7". Then you would understand what it's like to be 6 feet tall. Or to use a metaphor, supposing you say, I am the light. I choose to be the light of the world. Not the savior, not the one who's going to change the planet, but, a person who brings light and joy and peace and comfort and serenity and happiness wherever he goes to the people around him. Yeah, I like to light up the room when I walk into the room. I'm the light of the world in that sense. But could you experience yourself as the light if you were a candle in the sun along with 50 billion other candles? No. In order to experience yourself as the light, you'd have to place yourself where? In the darkness, of course. Therefore, raise not your fist to the darkness, and curse the darkness not, but be a light unto the darkness, that you might know who you really are. And that all those whose lives you touch, by the way, might know who they really are as well. Just a thought, just an idea. That's an awareness that I've come to as a result of my experience that I called Conversations with God.
I found Conversations with God to be such just a heartfelt and empowering read. And your book as well, my goodness, this book is really touching my heart. One of the things that you talk about is pain and suffering are not the same thing. Can you share on that for us?
I'd be happy to. Yes, of course. Pain, emotional or physical pain, is a particular experience. But suffering is a judgment that we make that the experience we're having should not be happening, that what's going on should not be going on. And the example that I like to use when I share this with people is a woman in childbirth. I've been present, by the way, for the birth of several of my children, including the birth of my triplet sons. I was in the room as their mother gave them birth, one after the other, triplets born within the same 60-minute period. I saw a woman going through a lot of pain, not a little pain, a lot of pain. But I didn't see a woman who was suffering. In fact, quite to the contrary. Her eyes were filled with tears of joy, joy, while she was experiencing the pain of birth, the joy of bringing new life into the world. And when she held those 3 babies in her arms, you can't even imagine the look on her face, even though she was still experiencing some of the painful after effects of giving those 3 boys birth. My 3 wonderful triplet sons, Devin, Dustin, and Dylan. What a bunch of guys. But you know what? I've learned that suffering is a judgment we make, that what's happening should not be happening. And I've taken that idea off the table in my life. Now I realize that everything that's happening serves us in the sense that it moves us forward in the process of our own understanding of who we really are and our own evolution. If we see it in that way, if we hold it not as that which is opposing us, but as that which is creating us and helping us to create ourselves in the next grandest version of the greatest vision ever we held about who we are. You know what, Marianne? I could be wrong about all of this, but these are the ideas that have changed my life. And these are the ideas that I wish someone had placed in front of me when I was 25. Believe me, it would have made a big difference in the first 30 years of my adult life. So we put it in a series of letters to a young seeker.
A lot of these are lessons that in some ways I'm still learning. So I really appreciate having this book to read because I think it's something that touches each of our souls in a way. When it resonates, we're like, okay, I get this. This makes sense for each person that is reading this book. One of the things that you touch on is that I found interesting is you talk about God may not be what people think God is. That's a pretty big statement, and I'd love for you to share on that.
Well, I think that most people who believe in God and not at all, and that, by the way, is 8 out of 10 people. I don't know whether members of our audience are aware of that, but surveys have been taken by sociologists over the past 10 years in most of the countries of the world. It's a one-question survey. And the one question that they asked people on the street and when, wherever they met them, shopping centers or whatever, they asked people, do you believe in a higher power? And 85% of the people who answered the question said yes. They couldn't all agree on what the higher power was and what it wanted and what it needed and what it did if it did not get what it wanted and what it needed. But 8 out of 10 people said yes, I believe there's a higher power. So, yes, the real question is, what if God is not what we think that God is? And that's the questions I've been asking since I had my conversations with God. Because I was told in those conversations, Neale, I am not a judging, condemning, and punishing deity. My love for you is not a transaction. God's love is not transactional. You do for me what I want, and I'll give you what you want, like a trade deal between nations. No, my love is not a transaction. My love is a transmission. I am transmitting to you love that knows no condition, a love that knows no limitation, a love that knows no requirement of any kind, pure love that needs, expects, demands nothing in return. You know what? Most people can't believe in a God like that. People have been taught that God is judgmental, condemning, and punishing. Yes, God loves us. Fair enough. Religions tell us God loves us. But if you don't do what God says, you're in trouble. It's more than you're in trouble. You're going to be condemned to everlasting damnation. Talk about a punishment that's out of proportion to the offense. I mean, how long is one person's lifetime? Even if you live to be 120, how long is 120 years compared to eternity? The blink of an eye? It would be like saying to a 2-year-old child at the dinner table who misbehaved, even though they misbehaved intentionally, to get attention or whatever. You don't turn to your 2-year-old child and say, go to your room for the next 120 years for a 15-second offense. But we believe in a God who says, you know what? You were here for a lifetime, and during that lifetime, you did a few things that were not okay with me, and so you're going to spend eternity in hell. And that's the God we've been taught about by many of the world's religions. We even have a couple of religions that tell us that if you don't belong to their religion, there's only one true religion. You have to not only believe in God, not only believe in religious teachings of goodness and kindness and compassion and forgiveness and understanding, but even if you did all of those things, it doesn't matter if you belong to the wrong religion. So we have some religions that teach if you don't belong to this religion, you're going to hell. Even if you were a kind, caring, wonderful, compassionate person all of your life, even if you believed in God all of your life, I'm sorry, you joined the wrong religion. So we believe in a God whose love is transactional. Either you're part of my group or you're out. Not only are you out, but you will be punished with severe suffering for the rest of eternity. Come on, folks. I mean, come on, really? And then we wonder why we behave this way with each other. We behave this way with each other. Do what I require, or I will withdraw my love from you. We behave that way because we think, well, what's good enough for God is good enough for us. If God can behave that way, Why shouldn't I be able to behave in exactly the same way? Which is, of course, exactly what we've been doing, which is, Marianne, why we have had armed conflict on this planet for all but 5% of recorded history. Folks, did you hear what I just said? We've been killing each other for all but 5% of recorded history as our response to those who don't do what we say that they have to do to please us. Because this is the God in whom we believe, and what's good enough for God is good enough for us. But what if we changed the world's mind about God? What if we dared to say that God's love is unconditional, that God sends no one to hell, that there's no such place as hell, that hell was a human creation? What if we say that we believe in a God who simply says to us, I love you no matter what? You know something, Marianne? It took me 50 years to learn how to love adults that way. I couldn't even say that to the person on the pillow next to me. I was saying on the person I was living with, I love you if, which is why I had a string of failed relationships, one after the other, until I could finally look at the person across the room and say, I love you no matter what. I don't love you because of what I can get from you. If that's the reason that I love you, then I'm loving me. I'm simply loving me and just using you. But if I love you no matter what, whether I get from you what I hope to get from you or not, then my love is pure. And so I'm suggesting to all those within the sound of my voice now, find a way to love those you love purely, needing, hoping for, and certainly requiring nothing in return. Dare you, double dare you.
I'll take that dare. I think for a lot of people that have never experienced love like that, this can be uncharted territory.
Yes, and that's the largest number of people, by the way, which is the point that I'm making. Most people have not experienced that kind of love. Maybe there's 5 or 8 or 10% of us who have, but I'm going to say 90% or more of the people have not experienced that kind of love because that's not the kind of love we've been taught about, which is precisely the point I'm making here. We've been taught about a love from the highest power in the universe that only comes to us if we do what we are commanded to do. Break the commandment and the love is over, folks. You're going to hell. Wow. What a concept. What an idea. So we send each other to hell when they don't do what we demand of them. Yes, you're correct. It's the smallest percentage of people who have experienced the kind of love that God has for us. Unconditional, unlimited, unwavering love, no matter what. So it is revolutionary. It's the kind of love that can, however, change the world overnight.
How can we start exhibiting that kind of love, especially if we've never experienced it ourselves? How do we start doing that?
Well, first of all, we do it not especially if we haven't experienced it ourselves, but because we haven't experienced it ourselves. That would be the reason to express it. And we would express it. How can we express it? By simply expressing it. You know what? I got to tell you something. I learned how to do that with my dog. I thought to myself, I wonder why I don't treat the person across the room as wonderfully as I treat my dog. I didn't stop loving my dog. If he made a mistake, and did something he shouldn't do, I accept it as part of his growth process. Maybe I can train him to be, a good dog. But you know what? The word dog is the word God backward. And I think we've got God backward. I think we don't understand that God loves us without condition, without requirement of any kind.
With this book that you are releasing, what hope do you have for humanity?
That humanity can move to a place where we can experience each other as who we really are, individuations of divinity. My hope for humanity is that in the years ahead, because of our new technologies, because of our ability to communicate with each other instantaneously and completely and fully, we have technologies today that we didn't even have 15 or 20 years ago, much less 50 years ago, much less 150 years ago. And what kind of technologies could come along in the next 50 years? So my hope for humanity, my knowing actually for humanity, is that we will evolve to a place where we can create heaven on earth. We're going to go there. We can do this, folks. All we have to do is be the change we wish to see in the world, as Mahatma Gandhi told us years ago. Be the change you wish to see in the world. Be one of those who brings a new message to humanity. It's possible to do that by simply altering your own thoughts, words, and actions on a daily basis. And let every thought, word, and action demonstrate pure love. A love that needs nothing and requires nothing in return, whether or not you ever experienced that kind of love. In fact, especially if you never experienced it, then allow yourself to call it forth from within you for others, because then you will experience it in return. What goes around comes around.
How do our emotions play a part in all of this? Because I know a lot of times we feel like our emotions may be carrying us away in one way or another. Are they powerful tools for creativity?
They're the most powerful tools of all. In my understanding, emotions are even more powerful than thoughts. Most of the world's, positive thinking books talk about your thoughts that need to be positive, the power of positive thinking, Norman Vincent Peale, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I've come to understand that what is even more, thoughts are powerful. I'm not suggesting that they're not. How you think can be very powerful. But the most powerful tool we have in our toolbox is our emotion. Motion. E equals motion. It's putting the energy of our thoughts into motion. And when we put the energy of our best thoughts into motion, we produce the best outcomes you could possibly imagine. And that's what's going to be happening on our planet in the next 20 to 30 years, I've been told. In my conversations with God, we're about 20 to 30 years away from the time when we can evolve to a being that produces the kind of environment that I'm describing, where we love each other without condition, without limitation of any kind, where we're not engaged in a trade deal with other people, and where there is no punishment for what we do that is not okay. Can you imagine a society, let's just look at this to give your audience an example of what I'm talking about. We've actually created a world and a society in which we think that doing what we don't want other people to do to us, that we do to them in return if they do it to us. Specifically, the death penalty. We actually kill people. We actually kill them as a response to their killing someone else. We say, okay, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So we're going to do to you deliberately, kill you on purpose. We're going to do that to you in order to teach society to stop killing people on purpose. Albert Einstein, one of the world's great scientists, said years ago, you can't solve any problem using the same energy which created it. You're not going to bring an end to anger with more anger. You're not going to bring an end to cruelty with more cruelty. You're not going to bring an end to killing with more killing. And by the way, statistics prove that he was right. In places where the death penalty is enforced, the number of murders, the number of killings has not gone down. Hello, hello, Earth to Neale, Earth to Neale. Is anybody listening?
Sometimes it must feel like people are just not paying attention and not listening. And I wonder how God feels about that.
God doesn't have any desires along those lines. God doesn't require us to listen. God simply says, you know what? If you want to be an undeveloped, unevolved species for another 500 years, go ahead. There are hundreds and thousands, perhaps for all we know, millions, certainly many other civilizations in this universe. And on many other planets, this conversation would never even be taking place today. It might have taken place 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 600 years ago, but it's not taking place today. We are the children of the universe. It's time for us to grow up. But God doesn't have a need, which is what I think you meant when you asked the question. God doesn't have a need for us to behave in a certain way. It's God's desire that we would all be happy, joyful, serene, content, peaceful, and loving. That's God's desire. It's not what God requires. And God advises us to the same thing, to behave in the same way. God said to me, Neale, do not require what you desire. Because when you require what you desire, you've had an addiction. Don't become addicted to what you desire. That's a behavior that damages yourself and virtually everyone whose life you touch. Do not require what you would desire.
Thank you for answering that for me. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure a lot of people, it's helping them as well. One of the things you talk about in your book is that we are all one. Can you share on that for us, please?
My understanding is that all things are one thing. There is only one thing, and all things are part of the one thing there is. We are all, to use a metaphor, fingers on the hands of God. So, that's when I asked God, help me understand what you mean we are all one. God said, hold up your hand. So I held up my hand. God said, how many fingers do you have? I said, well, I'm one of the fortunate ones. I have all 5 of my fingers. God said, great. Are they all identical? I said, no, they're not identical. In fact, they all look different from the other one. They all have different characteristics, different functions, different capabilities, different appearances. No, they're not identical. They're all different. God said, are they separate? I said, well, they're not separate in the sense that they all belong to the same hand. They're all part of the same body. And God looked at me and said, you've just described your experience of who you are in relationship to me and to everyone else. You're all fingers on the hands of God. Individual, not identical, but not in any way separate from each other. And when you understand that you are not separate from each other, you will begin to treat each other in a new way, in a way that allows you to express and to experience that what you do for another or fail to do for another, you do or fail to do for yourself. For an elegant reason, because there's only one of us in the room.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that. For those folks who, Okay.
Excuse me, but one last thought. I'm not the first person to share that. There was a guy walking around 2,000 years ago who put it far more eloquently. He said, "Do unto others as you would have it done unto you." And he didn't say that just to sound good, just to have something, a nice aphorism to share with people. He told us this because this is how it works. He was telling us, folks, this is how it works. Do unto others as you would have it done unto you, because what you do unto others is and will be done unto you. Don't believe me? Watch your life.
That's so true. I mean, we look back and I know for me, when I've been unkind, I've had people be unkind to me. You can see that ripple effect take place.
I've learned that there is only one of us in the room. And when I speak to others, behave with others, interact with others in a way that I would like them to speak and interact with me, everything changes. And I have the kind of relationship, the kind of friendships, the kind of interactions of which I have dreamed when I was in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. Why didn't I know this then?
Well, this is such a profound book, Letters to a Young Seeker. Neale, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
No, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be with me and allowing me to share these thoughts with members of your audience. People don't have to agree with me. They may think I'm totally wrong. That's fair enough. But let's at least move forward in our lives, even if we disagree, in a way that allows us to disagree agreeably. Our differences do not have to create divisions. Our contrasts do not have to create our conflicts. Avid proponents do not have to become rabid opponents. There's another way to live. And that's what I discuss in Letters to a Young Seeker.
Well, thank you, Neale. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about Letters to a Young Seeker. Make sure to visit his website at nealedonaldwalsh.com for more information on his work and to be part of his community. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Mary Ann, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Mary Ann is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Mary Ann will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmaryann.com for more information.